Hello everybody, it's Warhammer here with another bit of Total War, Warhammer 2 quick match gameplay. This time around we are on a Stallion Tomb playing as the followers of Nagash against the forces of Chaos. And our army is being led by the Pope of all that is unholy, Arkan the Black. So for this match, I wanted to make use of one specific unit, and that was the Hex Race. Now personally, I think that the Hex Race, specifically for the followers of Nagash, are a pretty bad unit. The reason being that you don't get a heal, and it's something I hate about followers of Nagash ever since Arkan got nerfed. The fact that they don't have a heal, it makes many of their undead units kind of useless. But hurts the Hex Race especially badly, but I figured, you know what, let's give it a shot. Let's see if we can make them work. So for my build, obviously running the Pope of Evil, Arkan the Black here on his Pimp Chariot. He is coming in with the Lore of Death. He's got Spirit Leech, and I did bring Soul Blight. So I figured Soul Blight, because much of my army here is non-AP. In fact, everything except the Tomb Prince and the Hex Race is. So I figured we can use Soul Blight to help our Kepler Guard and Tomb Guard fight better. We can use it to help our Skeleton Archers snipe enemies down a little bit better. And alongside him, we do have a Tomb Prince acting as... And I should note that for Arkan, we did bring his Tomb Blade for the Skeleton Summon, as well as, of course, Curse. We've got My Build Be Done, and of course, the Liber Mortis for that protective value. Now, alongside him, we do have a Tomb Prince who does have basically most of his kit. Just no Cloak of Shifting Sands. He's got Guardian to help protect Arkan if needed, Curse of Chaff, of course, to rampage my opponent if possible, Tomb Strike to debuff enemies with terror, or to rout enemies with terror, as well as boost his own stats. And then finally we do have the Blade of Setep, once again to drop armor and allow archers to do more work, because this firing line is here to do, well, to specifically counter enemy large. I was a little bit worried about units like Kolek or Dragon Ogre Shagus or units like that showing up, and I figured, you know what, good counter here would be Skelly Archers. With Blessed Legion, if you're debuffing enemy armor, you can plus Arkan with Soul Blight or Blade of Setep from the Tomb Prince. You can easily nuke something like Kolek into the Afterlife in seconds. Now, for a front line, it is the Kepler Guard backed by 2 Tomb Guard and then 2 Skelly Spears. Certainly, Skelly Spears are not going to hold very long, but Kepler Guard, as well as the Tomb Guard, trades okay into most enemies. Kepler Guard actually got a slight buff against infantry in the last patch. They now have bonus, true bonus versus infantry. So I do believe they actually have slightly better damage output than they used to. Not entirely sure if they are worthwhile, but I figured let's give them a fair shake. We do have more spears in the back to provide more backline defense, and then the 2 Hex Wraiths. So these guys, I really want to see how they perform. I actually put 5 chevrons into them. This is to both boost their leadership as well as to boost their stats, because, like I said, one of the big problems is you got no heals. If these guys start crumbling too soon, we're screwed, and I'm not going to get any value out of them. So this is about a 1,700 gold cavalry unit apiece. Definitely kind of expensive, but we're going to be trying to make them work. Now, for my opponent's build, he has gone super wide and actually caught me very off guard with this. He decided to roll with a Chaos Sorcerer of Death, the most generic lineup of abilities ever, I must say, with Fate of Buna and Spirit Leech. Not surprising, to be honest, very good choices. Spirit Leech, of course, good against characters, and a lot of the single entities that Tomb Kings bring. Fate of Buna, honestly, not that good against Tomb Kings. It is, perhaps, though, in this case, was a good choice against the Hex Wraiths. I assume my opponent probably expected them. So in that case, it is good. But against basically everything else on Tomb Kings roster, maybe the Kepler Guard, but against basically everything else, it's kind of a crap spell on the Tomb King roster. We also have Arcane Conduit, as well as Life Leeching for lots of Winds of Magic. Now, for my opponent's front line, it is 4 units of Forsaken backed by 4 units of Chaos Marauders for Uber Width. These guys will potentially be piling through my Tomb Guard and Spears very quickly, so we're going to have to try to protect our boys with Soul Blights and break up charges with Arkan, that sort of thing. On the very flanks, we do have 2 Chaos Warhounds on either side. Some of these guys have poison, some of them are normal variants. Definitely going to be a huge threat to archers. Protecting the archers, this game is going to be nightmare. They're backed by the Swords of Chaos, as well as 2 units of Chaos Knights, one of which has lances. So definitely some brutal stuff. The Swords of Chaos got a huge buff. They're now an actually very competitive combat unit. Just still a generalist. They're not really great against Cav necessarily, but they're still very competitive. Now, over here, you can see the poor Forsaken get dumpstered. Arkan just dives through them, and the archery fire is raining in, but unfortunately, my opponent here does manage to debuff me, or actually, I should say, I'm debuffing myself with the Blessed Legion, and although we dropped the Liber Mortis here, we are getting pounded pretty hard by the Forsaken. That said, this was a little bit of a win here. The Forsaken lost their charge bonus. The Kepler Guard is going to get in, and they're going to shred these guys in brutal fashion, especially with the Armor Sundering taking effect. In the meantime, the dogs here do get interdicted by the Spears. And over here, you can see Forsaken are definitely losing to Tomb Guard, especially with the help of the Remortis to keep them in the fight. Unfortunately, the same cannot be said for the Spearmen here who are getting demolished. And unfortunately, the Soul Blight was mispositioned, so it doesn't hit these Forsaken. So a big loss there. In the meantime, Dog's getting on top of my Skeleton Archers. Misplay here. Spirit Leech goes down on the Skeleton Archers. Not sure what was up with that, but I guess. I think that was a huge waste and probably a misclick, but definitely I'm not complaining. In the meantime, though, Knights plowing through, and I'm just not on top of my micro, not intercepting at all. You can see the Hex Rays dive in on the Chaos Warhounds. I was looking to get a quick tear out, and don't really get one. They actually stick around for more than I expected. They finally do start breaking, fear kicking in, and you can see the Chaos Knights do get a rear charge. Swords of Chaos diving in on the Hex Wraith, but the Hex Wraith is holding strong. They don't give a damn, because Hex Wraiths have 75% physical resist, so they can definitely tank through quite a lot here, and they will do so. Meantime, Arkan's Curse does go off because he's just getting pounded into the dust. Chaos Knights here hit with Blade of Setep, as was Legion of Demonetization at some point. They are down to 60 armor, getting shredded in brutal fashion. The Prince and Arkan honestly doing an okay job against them. And in the meantime, Spear stalling, and my opponent's Lord here getting beaten down. And my opponent is trying to free him with his Knight. So that's a bit of a saving grace here for Arkan since he's not being focused. Unfortunately, Fate of Buna does go down on one unit of my Hex Rates. These guys are not going to survive this. This is the hard counter to these bad boys, and they're not going to be able to stick around. That said, Swords of Chaos getting demolished, and you can see this other unit of Hex Rays sticking around, not giving a damn. They do not give a crap about these Chaos Knights with Lances who would buckle just about any other lightly armored cavalry. Hex Rays, really potent cav if they get ideal conditions. They're just bad against magic, and you can see Fate of Buna here demolishing this unit and turning them to nothing. I mean, in the meantime, you can see Skeleton Archers are getting overwhelmed, Forsaken piling through. Things are definitely looking grim, but the Tomb Prince is able to get in here on the Knights, able to sweep in against the Chaos Sorcerer, and this, in my opinion, is a bit of a misplay. My opponent had a lack of focus here. He's hitting my Tomb Prince with Spirit Leech right now. He could have easily focused Arkan, who's down to 1500, and potentially gotten him down to critical state. But instead, he's focusing the Tomb Prince. Makes sense from the defensive standpoint, but it's not going to stop the Tomb Prince from chasing after him, and it does mean that Arkan's doing whatever the hell he wants while running over these Marauders and the Forsaken. Now my archers at this point are effectively screwed despite the multiple stages of Realm of Souls going off. Rashapti Summon goes down to break up these Marauders and help our Hex Rays stick around. You can see this unit up to 29 kills. Not doing a lot of damage to Swords of Chaos, but they try, and they are removing the Hounds from play, so that's definitely a win. And Spear Leech is going to start going down on the Swords of Chaos. We're going to be looking to remove this elite unit from play as quickly as we can. And yeah, we're going to take these guys down a little bit. Meantime, the poor Chaos Sorcerer of Death is forced to rout. Chaos Knights here cycling around looking for an opening, and they are going to get one. The archers are basically gone, and there's not much to protect them, but you can see the Horde of Tomb Guard piling into the center here. Tomb Guard still performing very well, 53 kills on these guys, 42 over here. They're crushing the Forsaken, and you can see Arkan just running shop on all these foul infantrymen, doing great work here. And the Hex Rays getting us around on the Swords of Chaos. These guys only have 26 kills, not the greatest, honestly. And we are able to get us around here and start beating the crap out of them. So that's one of the things. If you can get us around, it helps compensate for the Hex Rays' weak melee stats, and it means that you can get some good work in. Now, unfortunately, Spirit Leech is finally going down on Arkan, so things are going to looking a little grim for our favorite Death Pope over here. But he is doing his best, still running around. And of course, Terror from the Hex Rays is going to start impacting some of these units. It's going to start potentially causing terror routes. Unfortunately, Chaos Knights here are trying their very best, but another Spirit Leech going in on the Swords of Chaos and melting them into nothingness, while the Hex Rays continue to hold. They're just such a stable anchor. You can see they've almost gained an entire chevron, or I guess about 2/3 of a chevron in this fight, and they actually rout Swords of Chaos with terror. So you can see the lackeys of Archeon terror routed, as are the Chaos Knights with lances over here, hit with the Blade of Setep as well. The Chaos Marauders shatter. All these units flee, and although my opponent attempted to snipe me with the Chaos Sorcerer of Death, we were able to escape with Arkan, and suddenly my opponent's chances are looking grim. Certainly, he still has some troops. He still has the Chaos Knights with lances. He still has his Lord, but by and large, his infantry now is very badly mauled. The Kepler Guard up to 98 kills and just having a field day. They're regenerating. They've got 76 models out of 90 left. They're having an absolute easy time with this, slaughtering Marauders left and right. And basically looking for easy prey. The Hex Rays, in the meantime, I send them after these Knights. This is one of the beautiful things about Hex Rays. They are a light cav. If you get ideal conditions with Hex Rays, they're amazing. They're a light cav that can go toe-to-toe with much, if not all, of the heavy... not all, but a lot of the heavy cav in the game, barring specific hard counters like Grail Knights and Dragon Princes, who are basically immune to fire damage. But Yeah, they're able to overrun these Chaos Knights, and they cannot escape. And now once we're done with these Chaos Knights, we can now shift target and go after the Swords of Chaos. Down to 6 miles, 6 miles of potentially painful damage. But we're able to get in there, and the Hex Wraiths are just cutting these guys down to size, just sending them toppling into the muck. And swords are extinguished. Arkan's bodyguard is going to take ages to recover from this blow that was struck this day, and so definitely some brutal stuff. And now we are going to be in a good spot. Unfortunately, Arkan does fall, so I don't even know where he's at. Don't really. There we go. There's his chariot, or the remains of it, laying in a sea of marauders. What can you do? It doesn't really matter too much at this stage. We are rallying our Kepler Guard. We are rallying our Tomb Guard. My opponent desperately trying to shut down my Hex Wraiths. Now, with Arkan gone, things are going to get a little hairy, because Hex Wraiths, of course, have very, and I mean very bad leadership. So we hit these Forsaken here, buckle their leadership a little bit, and then shift flanks to the Warhounds with poison, smashing into them. Now, we do take a few model losses. Hex Wraiths will take damage for just about everything, but at this point, my opponent's army does shatter, and that is going to be GG. So, very fun and fast-paced game, but got to demonstrate, you know, Hex Wraiths can perform well. Now, personally, I think this match did demonstrate some of the problems with followers in Nagash, especially, to a lesser extent Hex Wraiths in general, but or ethereal units in general. But in particular, followers in Nagash, the fact that you don't have healing is crippling. Ethereal units and really, especially ethereal multiple model and multi-entity units, really need healing to perform well. Hex Wraiths, Cairn Wraiths, Banshees, none of those units perform particularly great if you don't have a source of heals to compensate for their low leadership and getting surrounded and taking a chip damage, whether from just any unit that hits them, because they don't have armor. So while they will trade well into AP units or some more elite units, they also will take damage from anything. Even low tier troops will do significant amounts of damage, relatively speaking, to them. Like, yes, a Marauder would normally say hit like a Demigriff for only, you know, 7 AP or whatever he does, but he's hitting a Hex Wraith for a similar 7, but your overall HP is much lower, so it hurts more. And I think that's a problem for the Hex Wraiths, is this residual chip damage, and you need that healing, and it's just lacking. It's just lacking for the faction. But that said, as you saw here, one unit of Hex Wraiths deleted by Fate of Buno, just showing that vulnerability of ethereal units to magic, and the fact that if you have no heals, you've got no way of bringing them back from that brink. At the same time, the other unit gained a Chevron throughout the course of the fight, ran down Chaos Knights, terror-routed multiple Chaos Knights, held the fort. These two guys, until my opponent cast that Fate of Buno, the two Hex Wraiths essentially just shrugged off everything. They were surrounded by Hounds, they were surrounded by Knights, Marauders, everything was in on them, easily holding far more than their value in enemy numbers, and just stops blocking it off and doing a great job. So definitely Hex Wraiths can be good, but holy hell, is it? Are you reliant? And had my opponent brought, say, Fire Magic, things could have gone far worse. Had he had Flamesword of Ruin, this match would probably swung in my opponent's favor. So that is something to keep in mind. For the rest of the army, I was very impressed with the Kepler Guard as well as the Tomb Guard, who kind of minced through the Forsaken and the Marauders. They kind of didn't give a shit and just killed everything. The Archers, they got wrecked. Partially because of my bad micro. I was just too slow to interdict the Hounds and the Chaos Knights. I was busy trying to escape with Arkan in the early game. At the same time, the Skelly Archers just, yeah, I just missed micro. That's what it boils down to. I also didn't have enough backline defense, which also hurt. I put my spears in the front line to generate additional width, because my opponent, he brought 8 units of infantry, so that alone was way more than I had infantry, and it made it very hard to defend those Skelly Archers. Tomb Prince did some good work, helping shut down the Chaos Knights. Arkan, of course, melting stuff with Spirit Leech, both the enemy lord as well as some of these Chaos Knights and the Swords of Chaos, of course. And on his chariot, he ran amok on the infantry. Now, for my opponent's build, I think Forsaken are not a great unit in this matchup. I think you're much better off with just Chaos Warriors, honestly. You get the Silver Shield, you get 100 armor. They will shrug off basically not everything Tomb Kings will throw at you, but all the infantry Tomb Kings will throw at you, they'll shrug off. They'll hold their own for a while, even against, and monsters will not just remove Chaos Warriors from play. So I think they're a very good choice in this matchup. And given that they cost as much as Forsaken, given the choice, I would go with Chaos Warriors over Forsaken. Forsaken also are very reliant on the charge. My opponent missed the charge with 2 of them, and they got demolished. They basically got nothing done. This wouldn't be the case with Chaos Warriors. Chaos Warriors miss a charge, and it sucks, because Chaos Warriors do have a meaty charge, but it's not going to end your game. It's not going to screw you over the way it does with Forsaken. So yeah, in general, I just think Chaos Warriors are better here. The rest of it, interesting take on things. I do think he would have struggled against a construct heavy build because ultimately Chaos Warriors or Chaos Knights, while very strong, aren't the greatest against constructs unless they're able to isolate them. And isolating units with Tomb Kings is tough because their units will fight to the death. If your opponent parks on like a unit of Tomb Guard Halberds with a Necro Sphinx or like Cetron or War Sphinx and Necro Sphinx, something like that, it's not necessarily the most common sight, but it is something you see occasionally. Good luck dealing with that with Chaos Knights. Even the Swords of Chaos, who are very good in sort of sustained melee and grinding through such situations, would probably lose that fight. So, I personally think you want to shag it, either Shaggoth or some Marauder Horsemen. One or the other, you don't necessarily need both, I think, but having more reliable options to counter single entities camped up on halberds is a good idea in my opinion. And Chaos Knights aren't really it. If your opponent decided to Death Star against this build, which, you know, Tomb Kings do occasionally do, you'd have a tough time in my opinion. So just something to keep in mind. Regardless, well played to King Arthur here. I do hope you guys enjoyed the video. Hope you found it fun and entertaining to see some Hex Wraith action for a faction I don't really see the Hex Wraiths brought very often. To be honest, I feel like the followers of Nagash, ever since the nerfs to Arkan, have kind of fallen off as a useful choice because bats are basically just carrion. There's no real huge gain there. I guess Direwolves are kind of nice, but they're an overpriced unit ultimately, and even more overpriced in the case of the followers of Nagash. And you've got Crypt Ghouls, who, yeah, they're okay. It's like the one okay unit there. And then Hex Wraiths, who are just both overpriced and badly supported in the roster. So it's a bit of a tough situation, but yeah, I figured might as well make it work, and hopefully you guys enjoyed. If you have any comments, critiques, questions, requests, anything of that nature, be sure to put them down in the comments below. I will do my best to respond as soon as I can. I do thank you all for watching, and I will see you all in the next one. Bye for now.